Restoring Men in History, a fantastic one for you men today on success life lessons. The Stockdale Paradox. Good to great. We want you guys to be great, so why are we doing this? Give you principles to make your life better. You can use this in your life or business. The Admiral Stockdale was a prisoner of war, and Jim Collins looked at it and he called it the Stockdale Paradox, and he applied it to companies, but we can apply it to life. Which guys made it out of the camp, which guys didn't make it out of the camp, and why? Mindset, psychology, and we're going to go into that chapter 4, and the title of the chapter is Confront the Brutal Facts, Yet Never Lose Faith. Now we're going to mainly focus on Stockdale and the Stockdale Paradox, because if you guys take this, I think it can make your lives and enrich your lives and make them better and improved. And what are we trying to do? Make you guys better, making men great again, right? Making history great again, right? So men today, not history or the Constitution, men. All right, so here's the Stockdale Paradox from chapter 4, Good to Great, Jim Collins. Of course, not all good to great companies faced, and he had looked at companies and compared them. What made companies not work and not work. I introduced that in the last video. And he found out which companies work, consistency over 15 years. But anyway, of course, not all good to great companies faced a dire crisis like Fannie Mae, fewer than half did, but every good to great company faced significant adversity. And let me tell you guys, you're going to face adversity in your life. And you have an opportunity to take that adversity and turn it into something great. Your mindset will determine a lot of it. Every good to great company face significant adversity, and you will in your life. You're going to face obstacles, problems. How are you going to handle them? One sort or another. Gillette, Nicor, takeover battles, Wells Fargo, deregulation, Pitney Bowes. So he goes through all these companies. Kroger and A&P was a great example. In every case, the management team responded with a powerful psychological duality, and that's what we're going to talk about. On the one hand, they maintained an unwavering faith in the end game and a commitment to prevail as a great company despite brutal facts. We came to call this duality the Stockdale Paradox, and that's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, the Stockdale Paradox. The name refers to Admiral Jim Stockdale. He was the highest ranking United States military officer in Hanoi. He was a prisoner of war during the Vietnam War. Tortured, get this, you ready? How many times do you think he was tortured? He was tortured over 20 times in his 8 years of imprisonment. Imprisoned 8 years, 1965 to 73. Stockdale lived out the war without any prisoner's rights. No set release date, keep that in mind, no set release date, and no certainty as whether he would survive and see his family again. Imagine yourself in this situation, put yourself there and see it. What would you do? What would your thoughts be? He shouldered the burden of command too, right? Because if you're a leader, what do you have to do, Brian? What do you have to do, Dave Harrington? You got to take care of your men. You got to think about your men. Matt Funicello, what do you got to do? You got to care about your men, think about your men, worry about your men, be concerned for your men, and make it better for them. You're always going to be thinking about your men. Doing everything he could to create conditions that would increase the number of prisoners who would what? Survive unbroken, while fighting an internal war against his captors and their attempts to use the prisoners for propaganda. Now, at one point, guess what he did? You know what he did? He beat himself and cut himself with a razor. Why? Deliberately disfiguring himself so he could not be put on videotape as an example of a well-treated prisoner. He exchanged secret intelligence with his wife through their letters, knowing that if he got discovered, that would probably mean death for him, right? He instituted rules that would help people to deal with torture. See, there he is thinking about his men as a leader, and there's leadership lessons here too, right, Tara? He instituted rules that would help people deal with torture. No one can resist torture indefinitely, so he created a stepwise system. Again, this is from chapter 4. After X minutes, you can say certain things. So again, thinking about his men, how to get them out of there stable. They gave them in milestones to survive. He instituted an elaborate, Brian, this is one for Brian, he likes communication systems to reduce the sense of isolation that their captors tried to create, which used a 5x5 matrix, Brian, of tap codes for alpha characters. Tap, tap equals the letter A, tap, pause, tap equals the letter B. So these are some good things that this man was doing as a leader while himself being tortured, thinking about others. And we want you guys thinking about your fellow men, your fellow warriors, your fellow Spartans, your fellow knights. During imprisoned silence, the prisoners mopped and swept the central yard using the code. One time they did a swashing out, "We love you" to Stockdale on the 3rd anniversary of him being there. Imagine how much that meant to the men isolated to be able to communicate. And that was because of Admiral Stockdale keeping his head and his mindset. Could you do that? Stockdale became the first 3-star officer in the history of the Navy to wear both aviator wings and what? The Congressional Medal of Honor. You can understand then, he talks about him meeting him, the prospect of spending part of the afternoon with him. One of my students had written the paper on Stockdale, who happened to be a senior research fellow. So he had read the book Love and War, the book Stockdale and his wife had written in alternating chapters explaining their experiences during the 8 years. As he moved through the book, he got depressed. Jim Collins says, he got depressed. It just seemed so bleak, the uncertainty of the fate, keep that in mind, the brutality of his captors and so on. And then it dawned on him. Here I'm sitting at my desk, this is him reading, and comfortable office looking out over this beautiful Stanford campus on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I'm reading, getting depressed reading this, and I know the end of the story, he says. I know that he gets out. I know he reunites with his family, becomes a national hero, and gets to spend the latter years of his life studying philosophy. So he's getting depressed, ladies and gentlemen, and he knows the end game. And he says this to himself: if it feels depressing for me, how on earth did he deal with it? When he was actually there and did not know the end of the story. And this is what happened when he asked him. He said, I never lost faith in the end of the story, Stockdale said when Collins asked him. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life. We could do a whole video on that, which in retrospect, I would not trade. Let's just stop for a second. We can come back and do a whole video on this. Defining events of your life, ladies and gentlemen, Tara. You see, you can use a bad father, a bad mother, or something else to be a defining event of your life. Like, for example, alcoholics. Some tend to go after their father who's an alcoholic and an abuser. Some move away from that. That's life choice, right? Some guys grow up with an alcoholic father, they move away. We've got a lot of involved fathers. How are you going to experience that? How are you going to handle that? What are you going to do with it? So he decided, he made a decision there that he would turn the experience into the defining event of your life. So if you see obstacles and adversities as opportunities to define your life, isn't that a better perspective? Think about this. You lose a business or whatever it is, but you're going to define your life by that. You can say, I'm going to learn from that. And next time we're going to do it this way, and we're not going to fail in business, right? That's your choice, how you define the event. So he didn't say anything for many minutes. We continued the slow walk to the faculty club, Stockdale limping and arc swinging his still legs. Finally, after about 100 meters of silence, I asked who didn't make it out, and this is a key. So what's the difference? Stockdale made it out. Who didn't? Stockdale answered, oh, that's easy, he said, the optimist. The optimist, he didn't understand, Jim Collins said, now completely confused given what he'd said 100 meters earlier. The optimists, they were the ones who said, we're going to get out by Christmas. And Christmas would come, and then Christmas would go. Then they'd say, we're going to be out by Easter. Yeah, we're going to be out by Easter. Then Easter would come, and Easter would go, and then Thanksgiving. And then it would be Christmas again, and they died of a broken heart. Then he turned to me and said, this is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. And I think that's a big life lesson for you men out there. Let's read it again. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end. So you always got to have the faith that you'll be able to prevail in the end in your business or in your life or in your relationship. You need to believe and have faith that you will prevail, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, what it ever may be. So you got to go through, take note of the brutal facts, how you're going to handle them. He says, to this day, he carries this mental image of Stockdale admonishing the optimist, we're not getting out of Christmas, deal with it. We're not getting out by Christmas, deal with it. So this conversation with Admiral Stockdale stayed with me. But listen, this is a good life lesson for you when you hit adversity in it. But let's go on. He says, Collins says, life is unfair, sometimes to our advantage, sometimes to our disadvantage. We will all experience disappointments. Yes, You men are probably 99.9% of you going to experience disappointments and crushing events somewhere along the line. Setbacks, which there is no reason. It's probably not even your fault many times, right? There's a big fire going on right now, right? California. Those people didn't cause it. He goes on to say it might be an accident, it might be losing a loved one, and we can say that. You're going to have problems that come up. You're going to face obstacles. What separates people, Stockdale taught him, is not the presence or absence of difficulty, but how they deal with the inevitable difficulties of life. Now, this is a great life lesson. How are we going to deal with it, gentlemen? Because it's going to hit you and knock you down. Are you going to get back up? In wrestling with life's challenges, the Stockdale Paradox, you must retain faith that you will prevail in the end, and you must confront the brutal facts. So he goes through in this book companies like the difference in A and P and how they dealt with it in Kroger's. But here's what I'm really talking about. If you own a business, you can apply this. If you're just an employee in a business, but you have a division, you can apply this. But mainly, you can apply it to your life because obstacles and adversity is going to hit you. You're going to have problems, a car accident, a wife dies. Something's going to hit you badly. Something's going to hit you. How are you going to deal with it? What's your mindset going to be? Thank you.